Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Hawker-Zapper and this is Redefining AI, a tech podcast that focuses on key narratives that help people explore artificial intelligence, machine learning, insight engines in the insight era. In this episode today, I've been joined by Jordan Morrow. Jordan is known as the Godfather of Data Literacy, having helped pioneer the field by building one of the world's first data literacy programs and driving thought leadership. Jordan, at present, he's the Vice President and Head of Data and Analytics at Brainstorm Inc., and a global trailblazer in the world of data literacy. He served as the chair of the advisory board for the Data Literacy Project, and he's spoken at numerous conferences around the world. He's an active voice in the data and analytics community. He has also helped global organizations, including the United Nations, both build and understand data literacy. On top of all of that, Jordan is the author of two books. The two books, Be Data Literate and Be Data Driven. Now, this is an interesting conversation. I'm really excited about today's episode because it covers topics that I am equally as passionate about, both data and educational empowerment. As usual, the title is luminary of the direction that we intend to go in with our guest and thought leader, Jordan. This episode is called The Evident Need for Data Literacy. Jordan, it's a pleasure all the way from Miami. Welcome. Let's hear a little bit about you and find out why you're currently so popular in the data literacy field.
Oh man, popular. It's weird. So I'm coming to you from Miami. I'm home base in Utah, but out here for a teaching engagement at a college out here and hoping the hurricane passes me by. But data literacy to me, I've been asked the question, how did you figure this out? What did you figure out? Reality is I just had a nerdy idea. And that was, can we let's teach everyone how to use data and analytics, that you don't have to be a data and analytics professional to use data. And I've had a great opportunity to travel the world, to speak on it, to work with companies and organizations around this. And it's fun and it's enjoyable. And I think the reason it did become so popular as a topic, not necessarily me, but the topic, is organizations truly wanted to be data driven, and they wanted to utilize data to be smart and to make smart data driven decisions. And then the workforce had to get there with that. And in order for the workforce to get there with that, we had to have skills to do that. And we know there's a skills shortage and all of that. And so it just kind of came at this time when organizations really wanted to use data. And so not necessarily me that's popular, but the topic itself is one that I feel organizations are finally utilizing. I think COVID sped it up. I think COVID actually enhanced the need for this, or sped up the timeline for full adoption. But it's exciting. I love it.
I can imagine. There's a lot to get passionate about when it comes to data. And you've certainly hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the necessity and also the movement that organizations are starting to embody around wanting to become more data-driven in multiple directions. We'll come back to the core focus of organizations, why they want to become data-driven and how this has impacted per se workforces and skill sets. But I want to touch upon a key factor that maybe has resulted in the increase of your own popularity, and that would be, I mentioned at the start that you are an author of two books. So you're the author of Be Data Literate and Be Data Driven. What are your key passes on both of those, and are they aimed at the same audiences?
So it's an interesting question. I think both have absolute merit with everyone in an audience, right? A story can help illustrate the book Be Data Literate. I'm a trail runner, and I was running in the mountains once, and I came across someone who knew me, and it was probably right around the time my first book came out, which was in 2021, I believe, last year. Anyway, she comes up to me and she says, "Congrats on the book," and says something to the effect, "I'm probably too stupid to read it." What a horrible thing to say about it yourself, right? But it also, number two, misses the point of that book. And that book is designed to empower everyone with an understanding around data literacy. Data literacy is a field and an area where everyone has a seat at the data and analytics table. It is not just for data and analytics professionals or those who aren't. And so that's really where the essence of that book is. So if we were to look at it from target audience, maybe we could say that book is based on an individual. But at the same time, organizations should be reading it and adopting it to get a better understanding. The second book, Be Data Driven, my publisher wanted to target like leadership, and totally okay with that. Because when we think about that term, be data driven, or the term, sorry, I think I meant there was data driven, it's essentially organizations utilizing data to meet their business goals and objectives. And so leadership needs to understand how to be data driven, but so does everybody else, right? And so I look at it that they might have specific target audiences, but they're designed for anybody, hopefully designed in a way that everybody can read and get something out of them so that we can compete and be successful with such an amazing tool and power and technology, which is data and analytics.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to jump like 10 steps ahead, but do you have to be data literate to be data driven? I mean, is there an interconnected relationship between both of those concepts?
I would say absolutely. But what I want to clarify with a response like I just gave is everybody already is more data literate than they know. Right? I think that we think of data literacy or data science and data and analytics as a certain reach this level, this or that. But what I think people misunderstand is we use data all the time. For example, I really am in Miami. I flew out a day early because a hurricane is hitting the East Coast or projected to. And it's supposed to be north of where I am. But given everything going on, I'm checking weather, I'm reading data and information, if you will, mainly just information on where it's going, but call that data, the tracking of it. So I flew out a day early. That's data literacy. That's utilizing data to make a decision. That's being data driven. And so what I would say is, yeah, you probably have to be data literate to be data driven, but the reality is everybody already has a level of data literacy. It might not be the strongest or most comfortable people could be in a business setting using business data. But we use data in our personal lives on a regular basis. And so what I would hope to convey to everybody is you're not data illiterate, right? But you're data literate already. Can we now enhance that skill, grow that skill forward so that you can just be more successful in your job, your career, that sort of thing? And so yes to your question, but I want to make sure people understand they're already there to a degree. And they should be proud of that. They should have an understanding that, yeah, I'm data literate to a degree. Can I go forward and be stronger and better with it?
Mm-hmm. It's a really nice thought. Let's move back a few steps then. So we're going to be talking about all things data, data skills, data literacy, technical literacy, and empowerment. I mean, you've just spoken about empowerment there and recognizing that people already have a certain level of data literacy, and it's about enhancing that level. So maybe before we set off, I think it is important to ground the conversation a little bit and then get our listeners warmed up contextually. We normally do this. We start our discussions with a quick fire contextualization round. So I give you the start of a sentence, Jordan, and you have to complete it whilst trying to just stick to one or two sentence answers.
Okay.
So this is sometimes the challenging part. You ready?
Absolutely.
Nice. What's the definition of data literacy?
Data literacy is the ability to read, work with, analyze, and communicate with data.
What does it mean to be data literate when you're not a data professional?
I would say it means being confident and comfortable in those 4 characteristics we just mentioned and utilizing data to do your job better.
Where do we need to measure the data literacy of data professionals?
Ooh, wow, there's a good question. I think I like to start with assessments. Assess where you are with your data and analytics skills as a data and analytics professional. Find your gaps, and then get on a path to learn how to fill those gaps or to eliminate them as best you can.
Is data literacy just the way to be able to engage in a data-driven society?
I think it is a way to engage in a society that utilizes data, but it also needs to go beyond that in that ability to analyze, find insight, help to make decisions, and then communicate effectively with data.
Mm-hmm. Is data literacy undervalued?
Yes, absolutely. I think we're seeing it come to light and come to life more and more, but I still think that it's either misunderstood or undervalued at times.
Mm-hmm. From an organizational perspective, what benefits do data literate employees bring?
I would say an empowered and ability to make smarter decisions where we combine the human element and the data element to bring forth better, more effective decisions.
Does an organization need data superheroes to lead by example and make a workforce recognize the importance of being data literate?
I think they're important, yes. I think a data superhero or evangelist can get people excited and help lead the charge to be a more data-driven organization.
Wonderful. Thank you for the quick fire introduction there.
I could have gone a lot more on those, man. That's hard to keep my mouth shut.
It is very difficult as well to sort of condense it down to 1 to 2 sentences.
Absolutely.
Is there anything then from that introduction that you feel is important to elaborate before we move on?
Yeah, I think there's two things I would elaborate on. Number one, when we define data literacy, there's a key term in data and analytics that's very popular that we leave out, and that's data science. That's left out on purpose, right? Data literacy is not data science. Does data science have pieces? Yeah, like the communicating with data. Can we do that better? But we want to make sure people understand we're not trying to turn them into data scientists with data literacy. We just want to empower them with data and analytical skills. And then number two, one key aspect of data literacy is data skepticism. What I mean by that is not data cynicism. The world does a good job of making people cynical towards data, i.e., I don't trust it, I don't want to use it. Instead, I want to create a world of data skeptics where they question it. They ask questions of the data that is presented to them. What does this mean? Could we have presented it differently? Could we have done this differently? I think that matters. And I think we need to empower people to understand that skepticism more, to be just making smarter decisions.
Yeah, I think that would have actually been one of my first questions. What is it that you are contributing to the efforts around the prominence of data literacy? What is your exact role? Are you that voice that wants to create the narrative that makes people more aware, that wants to challenge this skepticism? Are you the evangelist of the narrative starter? What is your role?
I would say yes to both of that. And I'm not sure how I feel about the nickname the Godfather of Data Literacy, but it's probably pretty accurate in the sense that I helped pioneer and invent the entire thing. I still teach on it. I still travel. I'm speaking later today about it in a webinar session tomorrow at the college I'm teaching here. I'm teaching about it. So I still create the vision. I still like to think, what is the future of it? Maybe that's not the way to say it, but writing about it. What's next? What needs to come as we build out and continually not just build out the vision, but execute on the vision and create the narrative around it. Not only that, but I built what probably was the world's first full-scale data literacy program. So I advise on companies, if you will, maybe not advise is the right word, but helping them understand what they need to do might be the best way to say it, to run a data literacy program. Now, I don't necessarily consult like I used to do on data literacy programs, given where I am. But like this year alone, I might have had anywhere 40 to 50 speaking engagements by the end of the year. And it could be even more than that. I mean, it's been a great year. We're seeing it happen. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of all of the above. I love the space. I love working in it. It's kind of my baby. And I like to be out there speaking on it and doing more with it.
It's interesting, and what I'm imagining in my head as well is that obviously you are creating this movement, but where are your parameters? Like, who is it that you're educating in that sense? Are you educating a mixed demographic? Is it an older generation? Is it younger generations? I mean, who is your target audience in the sense of being able to set a parameter to define a data literacy program that's adaptable and suitable for entire workforces?
Well, it's an interesting question. Every demographic is something I speak to. And given my experience and background and expertise in the area, I have that ability to do it. Like, for example, yesterday I did a webinar discussion with it wasn't an organization. It was, God, how would I describe it? Yeah, organization might be the case, but it had teachers and people from the manufacturing sector. And one of the questions is, how do you teach the younger generation about this? Okay, let's answer that. And then if we're looking at people who are older in their careers, how can they advance there? So it really, I don't have one parameter. It depends on the audience that I'm teaching. So for example, today I'm speaking to an organization, and that organization will probably have some advanced people in it, some beginners in data, some people advanced in their career, maybe some beginning in their career. Tomorrow at the college, I'm speaking to professors and deans, I believe, and the presidents, right, of the school to help the school be more data driven. So what I would say is there's no exact parameters. The parameters for me are defined by the audience that I'll be speaking to. And then it's directing the message there. But the reality is, if you think about data literacy, is the backbone and skeleton is probably going to be pretty uniform regardless of the background. And then it is breaking it down to a more customized approach of, if it's young children, if it's like next week, I'm going to be at an elementary school teaching about data and analytics. Or is it going to, when I was at the United Nations and you're talking about people who might be changing the world? And so it just depends on the audience. But I would say, and this is a great thing to think about from a data and analytics professional, audience matters greatly. Mm-hmm. And the ability of a data and analytics professional to be able to cater to the audience that you're talking to matters greatly. And so that's where my parameters go. It's not defined. It's defined by what audience I'm speaking to.
Mm-hmm. At the start as well, you obviously mentioned that data literacy, it's the ability to read, write, and communicate data in context, mm-hmm. including maybe an understanding of data sources and constructs.
Absolutely. And so I think that definition is that might be Gartner's specific
definition. That is a Gartner definition.
Is that the Gartner one? Uh-huh. And so when we think about it, the way I look at it is it really boils down to the simplicity of, are we confident and comfortable in using data in our jobs? And that would mean, to your point, do we understand the sources of where the data is coming from? Do we trust those sources, right? Are we able to find the insight to make a decision? It might not be that your role is to find the insight. That might not be your role at all. Your role might be to communicate with the professionals and say, this is what I need to find. Can you provide me the analysis? And then you're communicating out. So role, all those things matters, but can we just boil it down for people that, hey, let's get confident and comfortable in utilizing data to do your job better?
Do you think that the individual is only responsible for that? And I'm asking this question because obviously at Squirrel, we provide a wonderful tool that helps people find certain insights. And I'm questioning further, if we're trying to enhance the data literacy levels of workforces, are we then augmenting capabilities? I mean, do we need technology as well to ensure that people really are data literate? Can people become data literate without technology? And obviously there is a sort of, obviously you need technology to some extent, but is there really, where does that fine line lie of being able to use technology and being able to understand data? Who's responsible for educating workforces about the capabilities of the technology, and where is the employee or the individual responsible?
Yeah, I think there absolutely has to be a marriage between the tools and technology and the data literacy of the people. So let me start more from who's responsible for running it. Organizations are. Leadership in organizations. I do think there is personal responsibility, right? The organization could put a program in place, but if an individual doesn't want to do it, that's on them. That's not on the organization at that part. But you brought up something very interesting. Data literacy, to me, part of it is being able to augment with the tools, right? We don't want to get rid of human element. We don't want to get rid of your hunches, your gut feel, and those things. We want to combine those things with the tools and technology and the data. Without a data literate workforce, it's going to be harder to be able to combine those things. And so, again, everybody's already data literate. We already use tools to augment us, like our smartphones, an iPhone, a Samsung. Now, can we make them comfortable with the tools? I think you can learn data and analytics concepts without tools. but that doesn't mean you know how to practice them and utilize them. I find tools and technology, they're advancing. To your point, Squirrel and doing things for us that maybe 10 years ago we would have to do on our own. That's wonderful. To me, tools and technology should augment us, and we should augment the tools and technology. It should be a marriage between the tools. So as we're learning concepts and stuff, if there is a tool or technology that comes along that can do it for us, wonderful. Then the data literacy becomes, can I interact with the tool well enough to use what it does to be effective in my decision making? So these things go hand in hand. We can't get rid of the tool and technology, and we can't get rid of the data literacy. They need to go together. And part of the learning in data literacy, yeah, it's going to be the data and analytical skills that are concepts. But then it's going to be, can you filter in the data visualization? Okay. Can you query something? Okay. Can you do these things? Okay. And then it's incumbent on an organization to provide good, solid training programs, learning programs, so that it's not just mandatory training people have to take. It becomes a part of their skill set. We are right now on a Zoom meeting. That's a tool. And I think people are comfortable with that. Can we make them that comfortable utilizing data and analytics tools as a part of their jobs to do their jobs better?
Is one of the blockers in the development of the capabilities of an individual on a data literacy program, is that a resistance to technology?
Absolutely. The reality is the number one roadblock for data and analytics success, probably data literacy success, is the culture of the organization. And what you just described, resistance, is going to be a part of the culture, where it might be individual, it might be a business unit or a group, but the reality is we have to overcome those roadblocks and barriers. To do that, it becomes messaging and enhancing. If we sit here and say we just bought a technology you have to use, there's going to be resistance, I bet, because that means they're going to have to change. Instead, we're investing in this technology, and here is why, this is what it does, this is how it eliminates things from the past in a good way. That's a much better messaging. But yeah, I mean, if people are resistant to these things, good luck, because that's going to be your biggest roadblock. It's not the tools, it's not the data cleansing, it's not that. It's if people are not willing to do it, your investment might just go down the tank.
And what are some of the best practices that have proven to eliminate these type of obstacles in positive development of data literacy programs and technology adoption?
I think the messaging matters greatly. People don't want an email that says you have mandatory training. They don't want that email. Instead, bringing in someone like myself to do a webinar to get people excited. I've got one organization which is interested. It's a fire and rescue organization for an entire country. And they're going to have me come in, do a webinar remotely, and then I think come in person to this country and speak to leadership. Messaging matters. Can we get people excited? Can we help them understand why this matters, what will take place, how we're going to do it, versus buying a technology, forcing it on people's heads, and hope that it takes? I think that's how we have to do it, is the messaging, bringing in outside people to just get people excited, drive the message forward. And talk about the data superheroes you were talking about, having individuals in the organization who are excited about this, who can share the message, who can talk about it and help teach. And then the final thing that I think can help get doubters on board is create a library of proof of concepts where data and analytical work was successful, and you have proof points that it was successful. Bring that forward. And by bringing that forward and showing people, then boom, we have something right there that can help us to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Is there, I mean, obviously a lot of that is about behavioral change management as well, taking people through the 5-step process of recognizing it, seeing the benefit, being able to implement it, integrate it into their own daily activities. And I've seen it in action myself in smaller organizations, larger organizations, that an organization that's not data driven, that's not using data to support communication, that it is one of the most difficult challenges to really change that mindset. Is there a methodology or something that organizations or coaches or mentors or these superheroes can use to encourage that?
I think there's probably a plethora, right? A myriad that we could go out and study. I think what it really boils down to, at least one piece, is it's very incumbent on the person who wants to drive this change on an organization to not just go out and invest in a change management program and think this is going to be it. It's going to take time to truly study it out. I'm mentoring a person as she starts a company, and we're reading a book, or I recommended a book to her, and we were talking about something today, and it's 5 archetypes of this, and I don't need to go in that detail. But what I think it's missing in change management or this or that is what I was telling her to do. You need to sit down and study these things and then find the answers to them. You can't just go out to these big companies that run change management and say, come change my company, right? How many employees love that word change? How many people love it when we say we're going to change your organization or your culture, are just jumping at it, right? And so excited. They're not. And I think it's because it's not necessarily that the methodologies that exist out there aren't good. I think it's that we don't take enough upfront time to understand the impact this is going to have, to create the army of evangelists who will help support that change, to not send emails of mandatory training. And I think that that's what we need to do is whoever is running a data literacy initiative in an organization, take a step back and really study the organization and understand where gaps are, what gaps exist, hold focus groups within the company to learn more. That's when, okay, I've got the objective. We want to be data literate. We want to drive this program. Number 2, let me create a strategy. As part of that strategy, I'm going to go figure out what is happening. And when I figure out what is happening, that's wonderful, because then number 3, I can pick a methodology that fits that. That upfront work might take time, but it's going to hopefully pay dividends in the long run, versus if you go at it so quickly, then you're going to maybe be running a new program in 6 to 12 months because the first one didn't take.
Great advice. Yeah, really good advice. If we move to an alternative thought that circles in the same domain, if we look at parents, so there's a lot of parents that listen to Redefining AI as well. Where should they start on the road to data literacy empowerment? And also, I'm a parent myself, and I understand that you're as well, Jordan. And it's a question that I often reflect on in my recent own learnings of becoming more data literate. I took a course on query syntax and looked at advanced query syntax, and then tried to change my own search behavior. And the benefits were wonderful. I was exploring the internet in a whole new way. And sometimes I think, are younger generations is open to changing that behavior? And how do you try to challenge and encourage younger generations to keep an open mind, because they're so soaked and absorbed in data and technology and digitalization?
Yeah, let me talk about the younger generation. I think as far as parents, we've talked about it, right, is you've got to be curious, read, study, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But when we talk about children, what I find very interesting about kids, I've got 5, is they have a natural data literacy built within them. They are naturally experimenting, and their curiosity is growing automatically, right? Here's an example. This comes from the astrophysicist, I think that's what he was, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was at an event in Central Park, I believe, in New York. And in front of him was a mother and a child, and there was a puddle. And what does that child want to do? He probably wants to jump in that puddle. But what does the parent want to do? Guide them around it so they're not dealing with a mess. The moment we guide them around that puddle, we're eliminating a natural experiment for that child. And that's a natural curiosity. You were talking about query syntax, and you're going on and you're exploring it differently. That was a puddle, right? Children naturally do this. To be honest, one of the things we as parents have to do is get out of the way. Allow them to be, now, of course, within boundaries. If there's safety issues and problems, and yes, I get it. I'm not going to let my kids play with fire in my house, right? But if there are natural experiments that they can do, allow them to flourish with natural experiments. Help that curiosity. And that's the key, right? That's my first C. I've got 3 C's of data literacy. Number 1 is curiosity. Children have it, and they are taking in information. They're asking questions. I know we get frustrated as parents at the number of questions we get at times. I've got 5 kids. I get way too many questions, but they know I never want them to stop, even if I tell them to stop at times, right? But for whatever reason, as adults, we stop questioning things. You had a natural curiosity and explored the internet differently. We need to become curious again as little children. Children have it. They are built this way. This is what they want to do. We unfortunately get in their way. And so it's unfortunate that because of that, I'm not going to teach my kids how to query with SQL coding and Python at a young age. That's not what I'm going to do. What I am going to do is let them experiment. And then as they get older, oh, you want to learn how to code? There are simplified games for coding or simplified ways to learn coding and how things work. That's the direction to go with this. Now, as parents, like you just did, I want us all start naturally experimenting again. Start being curious. If a question pops in your mind and says, oh, I wonder how that works, don't ignore it. Go find out. That is a data literacy mindset. That is figuring things out. And there are books, there are courses you can take, all of that. But we all need to move our way back to this natural curiosity that kids have. That right there is a way to get them started. And as they get older, then we not interject. Oh, let's teach you some coding. Let's teach you some more math skills, maybe statistics. But just let them be and not impede the jump in the puddle. And then as adults, I want you to all go find a puddle and jump in it, right? I just want us to go figure things out again. Like, it's fascinating to me that I'm in the path on the outskirts of a hurricane. All right, well, let's learn what I can learn here. And my wife asked me this morning, if they order an evacuation, what's your plan? Well, to follow where everybody's going, right? You know, it's one of those that we've just got to bring that curiosity back and be that data skeptic where we're just questioning things. It's not bad to question things. Children question things always. Answer them and give them answers. At times, trust me, you can say, stop asking me questions. But I don't get why as adults, we just don't question things. We just take it at face value and, oh, that's it. Yeah, just start questioning it and being willing to be questioned ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So for all listening today, this is the positive challenge of the week or the day or the month, whatever suits you. But it's definitely a narrative that should be encouraged and we should follow. Talking about challenges though as well, Jordan, I think that your positive approach and mindset has brought you far along your own journey. But you must have came up against challenges. And I think that it's always of interest when people find out about unexpected challenges. So what has been the biggest unexpected challenge on this journey?
The biggest one for me, and it's not within the building of data literacy, it was I burned myself out. I burned myself to the ground building this, and I didn't recognize it, and it caused depression. And I grew to really not want to speak on data literacy. And you don't notice it. And we hear about burnout, right? We hear about these things. We hear about people talking about it. I didn't feel it coming. And I would just caution people who are in journeys to really figure out how to balance and harmonize your life. I had an opportunity recently within the last month, maybe two, it's got to be less than 2 months, where a friend who's wanted me to partner with him for a long time. And at first I said yes. And within 5 days, I was like, dude, I've got to back out. It's too much. And I think that learning that word no is one of the most powerful things anybody can do in their personal lives and in their career journey, is knowing when to say no so that your health is not impacted. It impacted me very adversely. And people probably would have been shocked to hear I don't want to talk about data literacy or I don't want to speak on it. Now I've got a better balance. At times I don't want to, but that might just be because life's busy. You've got 5 kids and stuff, but you've got to watch it. And I think that was the biggest challenge. It wasn't, I love talking to people, like doing a podcast like this. I love speaking. I love interacting, but I'm introverted, which is kind of funny in that way. And I'm traveling the world. I'm doing all this. And I can I think, pinpoint when it was that my body was like, I'm done with you.
And was it your body that recognized that, or did you feel it was more your mind, or was it an external sort of motivation or stimulant that made you recognize that?
No, it was my body. So I was on a trip for the company I was with in Spain, and I don't like leaving the family regardless. Like, I just don't like being too far away. And I used to travel quite a bit, but I worked remotely. So we would balance it with I was remote even pre-pandemic and travel. But I was on this trip in Spain, and the anxiety I felt was, I would say, at a different level, a different kind. And it was my body, like, I think my body just shut down. My brain was like, you're doing too much and I can't handle it anymore. So I'm sorry, but the switch is off. And it took a journey to get back to a better place. And it took opportunities. It took, I think, probably me being more forceful in my career, if I can say it that way. And it turned out to be better. But it was, it took a shock to the system. And so what I would say to people on that is, if you think you're experiencing it, talk to people, please. To go into depression and caused by burnout, have it diagnosed, it's like, that's just not, it's just not an enjoyable experience. And I'm happy to chat about it, because I think, especially from the male gender, we don't talk about it, right? And they keep it in, and we're starting to see that come to life. I think everybody, I don't care what gender, who you are, if you're experiencing things, just find people to talk to.
No, I want to thank you for being so open and for sharing this with us today. I would also agree that it's an extremely important and ever more recognised, unfortunately, personal situation that is affecting people in different ways. I've seen it in my own environment. Unfortunately, it went down a different road. But I do think that it is important that people understand that it happens to more rather than less.
Well, and I would say to that, from the outside, it probably looked like I was great because I'm still traveling, I'm speaking, data literacy is doing well, but you can't just tell by seeing someone, right? Everybody's dealing with something. Just be kind. I mean, I get we're kind of going more philosophical. I don't know if it's philosophy or whatever here, but it's like, careers are important. And from an economic perspective, at least in the States and probably elsewhere in the world, we're hitting hard times. And it's going to be one of those where people just need kindness, and they need that opportunity to be themselves and be open. And I would also say an opportunity to be mentored and to grow and to figure out balance and all of those things.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wonderful thought. And I think that it's a positive note that we can end the podcast on as well, to stay positive, to keep a positive approach and an open mind, an open heart, and to be kind to everyone out there. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I want to thank everyone else for listening today. It's been eventful, it's been informative, it's been enjoyable, it's been poignant, it's been philosophical, and it's been inspiring.